In my last video 61, we discussed the Basel III norms. Today, by this video 62, let us understand the types of charges which are created on assets when a bank lends loans or advances. We have to understand mainly 5 types of charges. They are pledge, hypothecation, mortgage, assignment of debt, and lien. Those who are interested in viewing my earlier videos may visit YouTube or my website www.lendinghub.co.in. Now let us start with the types of charges created on assets. First of all, before going into the details of the various charges, let us understand what is banking. Banking is accepting deposits from the public for the purpose of lending and investment. The reason why the banks lend money is to earn interest income, because bank is a commercial organization which is being set up for the purpose of earning or generating profit. The largest source of income to the bank is the interest it receives on loans and advances. Similarly, the largest source of funds to do banking business is the deposit it collects from the public. So the bank collects the deposit from the public. The money belongs to the public. The bank is under obligation to repay the deposit to the depositors as and when they demand money from the bank. And suppose the bank has utilized the money for the purpose of giving loans and advances to some borrowers. When the bank extends loan, the bank expects that the business for which the loan is given will generate adequate profit sufficient enough to repay the principal loan amount and the interest. If the loan is given to an individual, the bank will expect that the individual who had taken the loan had sufficient income to service the repayment obligation to the bank. Sometimes the businesses fail either on account of an external environment or on account of mismanagement. In such cases, banks have to fortify their position by taking what is called as a security, so that the bank can dispose of those securities and recover, if not fully, at least a major portion of the money lent to the borrowers, because the banks have to return the money to the public, because the money belongs to them. Now, what are the securities? See, securities could be a land together with a building, a machinery, a vehicle, furniture and fixtures, or any other assets like a fixed deposit, or it could be a debenture or bond. So all these are examples for different types of securities. Now, our topic is types of charges created on assets. What is meant by a charge? The charge is a legal right given by the borrower to the bank to take possession of the security to recover the dues in case of default. That means the borrower is giving an authority or a right to the bank that the asset which is charged by the borrower to the bank, you may take it, dispose it off, collect the sales proceeds, and utilize it to repay the loan. How does the bank create charge? As you know, when an account goes bad, the court goes only by evidences. So to create a charge, the borrower executes certain legal documents to the bank. That is how the charge is created. To create a charge, certain documents needs to be executed by the borrower in favor of the bank. That is how the charge is created. Now, we have learned what are the types of charges. The types of charges varies depending upon the nature of the credit facility, depending upon the constitution of the business, like say individual, proprietorship firm, partnership firm, limited liability partnership, limited company, government company, public company, one-person company, etc. It could be a trust, association, society, club. So what type of charge should be used and what type of document need to be created would depend on two factors. One is the credit product and also the constitution of the firm. So let us now start discussing the first charge, which is called pledge. Pledge is defined under section 172 of the Indian Contract Act. I am not going into the legal issues or legal complications involved into this. This is to make you basically understand what are the types of charges, how they are created in a language in which you understand it. Under pledge, the borrower has to hand over the assets to the bank. When I say assets, it is a movable asset. An asset could be a movable or immovable. The only immovable asset which comes to our mind is the land. Suppose somebody is giving his land as a security, the land is considered as an immovable asset. Any other asset, whether it is a stock of goods, whether it is a vehicle, whether it is a machinery, they are all coming under the class of movable asset. So pledge is applicable for movable asset. The ownership of the asset remains with the borrower, but possession is with the bank. The bank will retain the pledged goods till such time the borrower repays the loan. In case the borrower defaults, the bank has got a right to sell to recover the dues. But only thing is, bank has to issue a notice to the borrower that we are giving you 30 days time. If you don't come up and then pay off the dues together with the interest within 30 days, whatever the goods which you have handed over to me, we will auction it and recover the dues. The borrower is called the pledger and the bank is the pledgee. The borrower executes a document called agreement of pledge. That is the charge creating document in case of a pledge facility. It is called the charge creating document. As I have told you earlier, only movable assets are pledged. But as long as the goods are available with the bank, bank has to take care of the goods as though it belongs to them. When a loan is given to a limited company, we are aware that whatever the charge that is created by the bank has to be registered with them. But in case a limited company enjoys a pledge facility, there is no need to create or register a charge with ROC. The reason being, the goods are with the bank. One example of a pledge charge is a loan given against a jewelry. Whenever a person wants to take a loan against a jewelry, he comes to the bank, hands over the jewelry to the bank, and the bank keeps the jewelry with them as long as the loan remains. And once the loan is repaid, bank returns the jewelry to the owner of the jewelry. And another thing is that loan against food grains. Some of the farmers during the season, they keep the food grains like wheat, etc. in godowns and hand over the receipts to the bank. Bank gives a loan based on the receipts, and these goods should be kept in a godown and which will be locked by the bank, and the lock and key will be with the bank's custody. Similarly, sometimes the central government warehouses are there, or state government central warehousing houses are there, where the food grains are kept, for which the farmer or the person who keeps the goods gets a warehouse receipts. Against the warehouse receipts, the bank extends loan. Though the possession of the goods is not with the bank, in case of a central warehousing or state warehousing corporation, the receipts is sufficient enough to grant a loan against such food grains. Such a loan given against a warehouse receipt is known as constructive delivery, because though the goods have not come into the possession of the bank, possession of the warehouse receipts give them equal right over the goods. So we have learned now pledge. In the case of a pledge, the possession is with the bank. The document executed is agreement of pledge, and it could be a constructive delivery as well, that is loan given against a warehouse receipts. Let us move on to the next charge, hypothecation. The basic difference between a hypothecation and the pledge is, in case of a pledge, the possession of the goods is with the bank. But in case of a hypothecation, the possession of the good is with the customer himself or the borrower. Hypothecation is defined in the SARFAESI Act 2002. A borrower hypothecates his movable assets. Again, as in the case of a pledge, only movable assets are hypothecated. The borrower continues to enjoy the possession and also the ownership rights of the assets. In the pledge facility also, though the borrower hands over the goods to the bank, the ownership continues to remain with the borrower only. Only possession is with the bank. Similarly, here, both the possession and ownership remains with the borrower. In case the borrower default, the bank exercises the rights of the asset by taking possession and selling it. But for taking possession of the goods which are hypothecated, the bank has to go to the court and take permission. The borrower is called the hypothecator and the bank is called hypothecatee. And the charge creating document is deed of hypothecation or agreement of hypothecation. That is, as an evidence that the charge is created, the borrower need to execute a document which is called deed of hypothecation or agreement of hypothecation. This document acts as an evidence in the court of law when the borrower defaults. The bank claims, yes sir, I have a charge over these assets and he has created a charge for me. Again, a company's assets, suppose a hypothecation credit facility is given to a company, which is a limited company. The hypothecation charge need to be registered with the registrar of companies. Whenever bank gives a loan, a car loan or any vehicle loan to an individual, the bank's hypothecation charge is recorded in the RC book, registration certificate of the RTO. So that the individual who has taken a car loan will not be able to sell the car till such time he repays the entire dues, because the hypothecation charge of the bank will be seen on the registration certificate. So whenever we give a loan, a car loan or any vehicle loan or a truck loan or whatever it may be given, the banks create a charge or register a charge with the regional transport office. There are two types of charges. One is called a fixed charge, one is called a floating charge. I'll tell you what is a fixed charge. A bank has given a loan to a particular person to purchase a car. It is a fixed charge. The borrower who had taken a loan from the bank cannot sell the car till such time he pays the entire dues. So the bank is having a fixed charge. Suppose the bank has given a hypothecation facility to a business firm against the stock of material. We cannot apply the same rule of fixed charge in case of inventories because he has to sell the goods. So bank cannot say that these stocks are charged to me and then you cannot sell. In the normal course of business, the borrower has got the permission to sell the goods. So what we have is a floating charge. At any point of time, we will only verify what is the value of the stock he has. The item may keep on changing. The bank looks at the value only at any point of time. And every month, we will ask the customer, the borrower, to submit a statement called the stock statement, which will give you quantity of each of the item, their unit price, and the total value of the stock which he is holding. So remember that in hypothecation, there are two types of charges. One is a fixed charge, one is a floating charge. In case of any stock of material, either given to a trader or to a manufacturer, the charge which the bank is having is floating charge. Now let us move on to what is called mortgage. The mortgage is a charge created on immovables, that is on land. Please remember, building is not mortgaged. The land is mortgaged. The land together with the structure thereon. That is how we write. So please understand, land is always mortgaged. Land cannot be moved. That is why land is mortgaged. Mortgage is defined under Section 58 of the Transfer of Properties Act 1882. What it does is, it transfers the interest of an immovable property for securing a debt, which could be existing or future. So mortgage does not pass on the ownership, it only transfers the interest on the immovable property, either to secure an existing debt or a future debt. The ownership remains with the borrower, so also the possession. The borrower is the mortgager and the bank is the mortgagee. A mortgage created over a company's asset has to be charged with ROC. And it is mandatory that any mortgage created by any bank should be registered with an authority called CERSAI. This is to avoid the borrower cheating the banks by taking Xerox copies of the same title deed and moving from bank to bank. That is why now there is a registering authority which is called CERSAI, where the bank can first conduct a search and find out the property which is offered as security, whether it is mortgaged to any other lender, and bank can create a charge by registering the charge there with the CERSAI. And whenever there is a need to grant a loan against a land as a security, first thing you have to take a non-encumbrance certificate from the sub-registrar office. Normally it varies the period for which it is taken. The public sector bank do take it for 30 years. Private, some of them will take it for 15 years. It varies. The second one is, bank has got approved lawyers whose legal opinion need to be obtained on the title of the property. Title means the sale deed. And at the end, the lawyer should certify that the title deed is clear and marketable and this property can be accepted for mortgage. Please remember that whatever may be the narration inside, the legal opinion should conclude like this. The title is verified and the title is certified as clear and marketable, and this property can be accepted as a security. That is what is very important. Similarly, Since we are not valuers, we do not have the expertise to value a property, and we need to know what is the value of the security that is offered. The bank has got approved valuers to whom the copies of the title deed is given. He goes to the place, visits a place, and he goes to the sub-registrar office where the earlier deed is executed, in verifies, compares, and tells you what could be the approximate market value of the property. So please remember to obtain one non-encumbrance certificate, legal opinion, valuation report, and also the tax paid receipts, either it is on the panchayat or municipal corporation, to ensure that the records in the panchayat or municipal corporation also stand in the name of the borrower. If not, he has to change it and then approach the bank. See, there are two types of mortgages. One is called a registered mortgage, one is called an equitable mortgage. And naturally, the registered mortgage is more safe to a bank compared to that of an equitable mortgage. But whereas the stamp duty payable on the registered mortgage is more. Under registered mortgage, the mortgage is registered with the registrar of properties. That is, it is recorded in the sub-registrar office, for which the borrower had to execute a document called deed of mortgage. It is a stamped agreement, and the stamp duty is higher compared to that of an equitable mortgage. The stamp duty payable is high in a registered mortgage compared to an equitable mortgage. And once the loan is repaid, the mortgage which is created or registered with the sub-registrar office is cancelled. Now, when it comes to equitable mortgage, no registration is done. Mortgage is done by mere deposit of the title deed with the bank. So I do not know the purpose for which the title deed is deposited. Tomorrow he may argue in the court that I have not taken any loan, I have given my title deed for safekeeping. So to avoid that, the bank takes an undertaking from him, which is called the memorandum of deposit of title deed. Here he will say he has come to the bank with a title deed with an intention to create a mortgage on this property. So nowadays, some agreement is executed between the mortgager and the mortgagee. If a document is executed, then naturally it has to be compulsorily registered with the sub-registrar office. In case of an equitable mortgage, the stamp duty is less. Suppose there is no agreement between the mortgager and mortgagee, then what you have to give is the borrower has to send a notification or intimation to the sub-registrar office giving his proof of identity, telling that I have created an equitable mortgage there. So there are two options. One, the memorandum of deposit of title deed, where he has given his intention to create a mortgage, can also be registered, where the stamp duty is less. But if it is not done, naturally you can make the borrower send an intimation to them. Please remember, sending an intimation is not creating a charge at the sub-registrar office. It is totally different. So registered mortgage is more safer compared to that of a equitable mortgage. And nowadays in equitable mortgage, depending upon the state, in some places the memorandum of deposit of title deed is getting registered with the sub-registrar office. Some cases, in some states, they follow what is called the borrower intimating the sub-registrar office about the equitable mortgage. So mortgage is created as a charge on immovables, and the document created is deed of mortgage. That is a charge creating document. The next one is assignment of debt. Assignment of debt means actionable claims are charged to the lender. Actionable claims are charged to the lender by executing either a deed of assignment or a power of attorney. There are two types of assignment. One is called a legal assignment. One is called an equitable assignment. Let us get into these two things and let us understand what it is. Assignment of debt is defined under section 130 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882. Actionable claims are charged to the lender by executing a deed of assignment or an irrevocable power of attorney, as I have told you. Actionable claim means the right to claim an amount from another person. An example could be a loan given against an LIC policy, and the LIC policy is charged to the bank. Suppose Thomas had taken a loan from Vidya Bank and he is giving the insurance policy to the bank as a security. The value available to the bank is the surrender value of the security. They will get this information from the LIC or whatever it may be. We will ask Thomas to execute a document called deed of assignment. By executing the deed of assignment, he is giving his right to collect the money from the insurance company to the bank. And he will intimate this to the insurance company, so also the bank. So whatever may be the amount the LIC has to pay to Thomas, now it is assigned to the bank. So naturally, whatever may be the amount to be paid to Thomas, the LIC will pay only to the bank. So here, the borrower assigns the debt, what he has to get, to the bank. That is what is called assignment of debt. Now, I'll give you an example. Say, for example, we have a product in the bank called cash credit hypothecation of book debts. The book debt is nothing but the trade receivables which the customer gives at the end of every month, the value of the debtors to whom he has to, from whom he has to receive the money. So he will execute a document called deed of hypothecation of book debts. What he does is, he is assigning all the book debts to the bank. In case any debtor does not pay, bank has got the right to proceed against him. Because whatever may be the amount that the debtor has to pay to the business has assigned the debt in favor of the bank. Similarly, any subsidy to be received from the government, say, that sometimes what happens is a unit will be set up in a backward area where the government sanctions a subsidy, but subsidy is sanctioned but not released. Against that sanction letter, bank gives a loan, and whenever the subsidy is released by the government, bank should get it. So we will give, whenever we give a loan against a subsidy which is sanctioned but not disbursed, we will ask the borrower to assign the amount receivable from the government to the bank. So he assigns the debt to us. So we give a loan. So whenever the government releases the subsidy, it will be released only to the bank. We will recover the amount of the loan together with the interest, and balance will be credited to the borrower's account. Similarly, second one we have already discussed amount receivable under an insurance policy, where we take an insurance policy as a security. The third one is duty drawback receivable. You are aware that in the export finance, the government wants more exports to happen. Whenever there is more exports, we get more inflow of foreign exchange, which will help us to meet the import bill. So in order to incentivize the growth in exports, a part of the drop duty which the exporter pays when he exports, it is reimbursed by the central government. So that is what is called duty drawback receivable. That is, a part of the duty which they are paying is refunded by the Commerce Department, see, central government. So suppose if the repayment or reimbursement happens twice in a year, every 6 months. So I might have exported during the first half goods, and I have to receive, say, around 5 crore of duty drawback from the government. I have the list where the proof that I have to receive 5 crore from the central government. I come with that statement to the bank and say that I am yet to get that 5 crore. Can you not give me a loan? So bank extends loan against the duty drawback receivable, in which case, whenever the central government releases the duty reimbursement, it has to come to the bank. So what we will do that, we will ask the exporter to assign the debt, assign the duty drawback receivable in favor of the bank, for which the exporter will execute a deed of assignment in our favor. And so whenever the duty is released, the reimbursement part is released, that will be coming straight to the bank. We recover the dues together with the interest, and balance will be credited to the customer's account. So any advance given against insurance policy, or any advance given against a subsidy, or any duty drawback receivable, a loan given against that, they are all examples for assignment of debt. Now there are two types of assignment. One is the legal assignment. Whatever we have discussed so far is a legal assignment. That is, for example, a loan against a policy, or loan against a subsidy receivable, or a loan against the deed of this one. Wherever there is a deed of assignment is executed, it is a legal assignment. The another one is called equitable assignment. In the equitable assignment, no assignment of deed is executed. Instead, the borrower executes what is called an irrevocable power of attorney. So, for example, I'll give you an example. There is an MSME unit which is manufacturing the wiper blades for Maruti Suzuki, and he is registered as a vendor with the authorized register with the Maruti. Suppose he sends a bill through the bill collection, say bill purchase or bill discount, the Maruti becomes a MNC, and he will not accept all these things, and he is not prepared to do anything. He will say that he will demand that I should be given 45 days time to make payment. So the vendor, who is a small fellow, cannot bargain with a company like Maruti Suzuki Limited. So what he does is, he will keep on sending the goods directly, or the bills, freight receipts, lorry receipts, or railway receipt, etc. will be sent direct to the Maruti Suzuki, and he will come with the bills to the bank. And what happens, he will execute an irrevocable power of attorney in favor of the bank. That is, authorizing the bank to collect the debt from the Maruti Suzuki. So what we do is that we will send a copy of that irrevocable power of attorney executed by the borrower. We will get it registered with the Maruti Suzuki. So whenever Maruti Suzuki releases the payment to my customer, the money will come to me only. That is what is called a equitable assignment. Under equitable assignment, the example is advanced against supply bills, which most of the public sector banks doesn't in case of a transaction between a borrower and a multinational company, because there they are not prepared to accept your usance bill or ready to do this. They will say that send all the goods to us directly, and at the regular intervals we will keep on paying. So the borrower is giving an authority to the bank by executing an irrevocable power of attorney, asking them to collect the debt for and on behalf of him. This is what it is. So in that assignment of debt, any amount payable to somebody else is assigned to the bank. There are two types. One is called legal assignment, where the borrower executes what is called a deed of assignment. That is the charge creating document. That is, receivable is assigned. In case of an equitable assignment, the borrower executes only an irrevocable power of attorney in favor of the bank. Example is supply against advanced bills. Now let us understand the last one, that is lien. Lien, of course, is explained in section 171 of the Indian Contract Act. There are two types of liens. One means general lien, the right to hold another's property till the debt is paid. It is called a general lien. The bank enjoys the right of general lien. Even in the absence of any document, bank can exercise the right of lien on any asset of the borrower which has come into their possession. The bank's right of lien confers on them the right to sell the asset also. Say, for example, if a company has taken a loan against a machinery, that is, there is a loan which is given for the purpose of acquiring a machinery, and the company is also having an overdraft facility against a fixed deposit. Now you look here, there is a term loan against a machinery and an overdraft against a fixed deposit. Suppose he pays off the overdraft, and the company seeks that you return the fixed deposit or remove the lien on the deposit. If I have a general lien, I need not do that. Suppose my term loan account is not in order or is out of order, I can refuse to release a deposit. The reason being, bank is having the general lien. Nowadays, of course, the bank is taking not general lien and set off. That means I am not only taking a general lien where I have the right to keep that asset and I can sell it also, I can set off also. That is why in most of the cases, if you remember, most of the banks do take a document called letter of lien and set off. So this is about general lien. Another one is called a negative lien. Negative lien is nothing but an undertaking which says that the borrower will take the possession of the bank before disposing of any asset. It is only an undertaking and there is not much of a value for this. So while this video, we have understood what are the types of charges which bank creates on various assets. We have learned what is pledge, what is hypothecation, what is mortgage, what is assignment order, what is lien. If you have understood it, if you like it, subscribe to this channel and press the like button. This is the 60-second video. I will be coming out with more videos on various banking topics, mostly connected with the lending and risk management in banks. Thank you very much. Thank you.